He gave his grieving wife's seat to his mistress at the airport, just hours after her father's burial. Then he told her to stand there and watch the plane leave without her. What he did not know was simple. The airline he was showing off inside belonged to her. And by the time the gate agent finished reading her name, the whole terminal had gone silent. Her name was Amara Okonkwo. 3 hours earlier, she had stood beside red earth and fresh flowers, while her father was lowered into the ground in Enugu. Now she stood inside a bright airport terminal, still wearing black, still carrying the numb heaviness of a daughter who had not yet had time to cry properly. Grief does something strange to the body. It keeps you standing long after the heart has sat down. Anara had flown home alone for the burial. Her husband had promised he would join her. He never came. He said business in Lagos could not wait. He said tickets were too expensive at the last minute. He said her father would understand. Men like Kunle always had a smooth excuse ready before truth could catch them. But he came to the airport that night, and he did not come alone. When Amara reached the boarding gate, she saw him leaning against the counter with the lazy confidence of a man who had never been forced to face the weight of his own choices. Beside him stood a younger woman in a fitted cream blazer, glossy lips, perfect braids, and a carry-on bag resting against her calf, like she already belonged where another woman had been erased. Kunle smiled when he saw Amara. And if you have ever loved the wrong person, then you know there is a kind of smile that is not warmth. It is warning. "Amara," he said, as if this were an ordinary evening. "There's been a small change." Her eyes moved from him to the woman, then back again. "A change?" He lifted one shoulder. "There was only one confirmed seat left on the last flight to Lagos." He took the boarding pass from his pocket and held it up between two fingers. Then he placed it in the younger woman's hand. "This is Zuri," he said. "She's coming with me." For 1 second, the airport noise seemed to move far away. The rolling suitcases, the boarding announcements, the low hum of strangers talking about ordinary things, all of it faded. Amara looked at the pass in Zuri's hand, then at her husband's face. Then she asked the only question that mattered. "You gave her my seat?" Kunle let out a little laugh, as if she were being dramatic. "Don't start here. You can take the morning flight." "The morning flight?" she repeated softly. Her father had been buried that afternoon. Her clothes still smelled faintly of dust, rain, and funeral flowers. And the man who had stood beside her in church vows was now sending another woman home in her place. Zuri crossed one arm and tilted her head. "Honestly," she said, "if he wanted to bring me, maybe that says something." That was when 2 more people stepped forward. Kunle's mother, Mama Bisi, wrapped in expensive lace and judgment. And his younger brother, Femi, already holding up his phone, recording. Because some families do not protect their own. They perform cruelty like it is culture. Mama Bisi clicked her tongue. "I said from the beginning this girl was too quiet," she announced loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Women who act humble are usually hiding something. See how life exposes people." Femi laughed behind the camera. "Posture, Amara. At least look nice if you're getting left behind." A few travelers turned to look. Most looked away. That is how public humiliation survives. Not because cruelty is rare, but because courage usually is. Kunle stepped closer to Amara and lowered his voice just enough to make the disrespect feel intimate. "Don't embarrass me tonight," he said. "Just stand aside." Then he leaned near her ear and whispered the sentence that finally killed whatever was left of their marriage. You were useful. Don't confuse that with being important. Useful. Not loved. Not chosen. Not respected. Useful. Amara did not cry. She did not shout. She did not grab his shirt or beg the gate agent or curse the mistress or fight his mother. And that silence made them bolder. Because cruel people always mistake composure for weakness. But what they did not understand was this. Amara had spent all day burying a man who taught her never to perform pain for people who enjoy watching it. Her father, Chief David Okonkwo, had built her from sterner material than tears on command. When she was 12, he told her something she never forgot. He said, "A tree does not argue with goats. It just keeps growing." Back then, she did not understand it. That night at the airport, she did. She looked at the departure board. Flight to Lagos, Gate C12. Boarding in 37 minutes. Then she looked at the polished floor beneath her shoes and felt memory move through her like a current. Not just the burial, not just the humiliation. Everything. She remembered being 16 in her father's office after school, watching him study cargo routes, passenger loads, fuel reports, maintenance records, acquisition letters. He owned buses first, then freight lines, then regional air routes no one thought could survive. While other men bragged loudly, Chief Okonkwo built quietly. He used to let Amara sit beside him while he worked. Not because he had a son and wanted a backup. He had sons in the extended family. He let Amara sit there because he saw something in her that the world often refuses to see in soft-spoken women. Precision, discipline, patience, and hunger without noise. Years later, when his health began to fail, he called her into his private study in the house at Enugu. He didn't waste time on speeches. He handed her a folder, a brass key, and one sentence. Not everything with my name on it carries my name. At the time, Kunle thought her father was speaking in old man riddles. He never bothered asking questions. He had married into the family, enjoyed the lifestyle, taken the upgrades, worn the watches, driven the cars, smiled in the photos, and assumed he understood where power lived. That was his first mistake. Power rarely lives where loud people point. It lives where quiet people build. After Chief Okonkwo's health worsened, Amara took over more of the business than anyone knew. Not publicly, not dramatically, quietly. Through holding companies, through board decisions, through strategic acquisitions, through nights so long even the walls seemed tired. She did not tell Kunle the full scope of it. Do you know why? Because every time she tried to discuss business seriously, he laughed it off. He preferred the version of marriage where his wife looked elegant at events and said little. He liked her educated, but not formidable. Capable, but not powerful. Refined, but never above him. And while he was busy playing rich, Amara was busy becoming untouchable. 3 months before her father died, the Okonkwo Group completed its largest acquisition. A controlling stake in Azure Crown Air, one of the fastest-growing regional airlines moving elite and commercial traffic between major West African cities. The deal was structured through a parent company. Her company. Her signature. Her authority. Her airline. Kunle never knew. He saw invoices once and thought they were event sponsorship papers. He never read beyond the first page. Men who underestimate women rarely study them closely. Back at Gate C12, Femi was still filming. "Everybody look," he said into the phone. Wife got replaced at the airport. Lagos premium drama. Mama BC smiled the tight smile of a woman enjoying a humiliation she believed would remain permanent. Zuri adjusted the strap of her handbag and tucked the boarding pass deeper inside. And Kunle, so pleased with himself, turned away as if the matter was settled. That was when Amara moved. Not fast, not angry, just certain. She walked to the gate counter and faced the young agent standing there. His name tag read Samuel. He looked uncomfortable, the way decent people do when they are forced to witness wickedness dressed as confidence. Amara spoke in a calm, low voice. "Please search my legal name." Samuel blinked. "Ma'am?" "My legal name," she repeated. "Not the booking, the ownership record." Something in her tone made him stop fumbling. She gave him the full name. Amara Okonkwo. He typed. His eyes flicked across the screen once. Then again. Then his posture changed. You know that moment when someone realizes they are no longer dealing with an ordinary situation? That was the moment. Samuel's fingers froze above the keyboard. He looked up at Amara, back at the screen, then down again, as if maybe the computer itself needed a chance to correct its own fear. It didn't, because the name on the ownership file did not change. It remained exactly what it was. Primary majority holder, A.N. Okonkwo Holdings. Executive Chair, Amara Okonkwo. Samuel stepped back, picked up the phone, called someone in a voice too low for the crowd to hear. Within 1 minute, a supervisor arrived, then an operations manager, then a senior airport executive with a company pin on his lapel and urgency in his steps. Meanwhile, Kunle and Zuri had nearly reached the priority lane when they noticed movement gathering behind them. They turned, and there she was. Amara. Still in black, still calm. Now surrounded by airline officials who looked less like staff and more like men realizing they were in the presence of someone their training had taught them never to mishandle. The crowd went quiet first. That is always how it begins. Noise disappears before arrogance does. Kunle frowned and walked back toward the desk. "What's going on here?" he asked. "Why are you people crowding my wife?" My wife. Funny how men remember the title only when they need shelter under it. The senior executive turned to him. "Sir," he said carefully, "I'm going to ask you to step back." Kunle laughed. "Step back? From my own wife?" The executive's face did not move. "With respect, sir, this matter concerns the principal owner of this airline." The words landed like metal. Zuri's hand dropped from Kunle's arm. Femi lowered his phone without meaning to. Mama BC's lips parted, but no sound came out. Kunle stared. "I'm sorry," he said. "The what?" The executive turned slightly toward Amara. "Ma'am, on behalf of Azure Crown Air, please accept our deepest apologies for what happened at this gate." The entire terminal seemed to hold its breath. Amara looked at Kunle. Really looked at him. Not with heartbreak, not even with anger. With recognition. The final kind. The kind that arrives when illusion dies. "You wanted me to watch the plane leave without me," she said softly. Then she glanced around the terminal. "I think you chose the wrong woman for that lesson." Kunle shook his head. No, wait. This is some misunderstanding." It wasn't. And the worst part for him was that deep down, he knew it. Because suddenly, every moment he had ignored began lining up against him. Every call she took privately. Every document she asked him not to worry about. Every trip she made for family matters.
every room where serious men greeted her with unusual respect. He had seen all the clues and called them decoration. That was his second mistake. Never assume a quiet woman is standing in the shadow. Sometimes she is the shadow. Zuri slowly pulled the boarding pass from her handbag and stared at it as if it had become evidence. The little trophy no longer felt glamorous. It felt borrowed. Amara extended her hand, not for the pass, for the truth. "Keep it," she told Zuri. "It is the last thing connected to me that you will ever touch." Zuri's face changed first. The arrogance left before the color did. She set the boarding pass on the counter like it was burning her skin. Kunle stepped forward, desperate now. "Amara, listen to me." "No," she said, and it was not loud, but it stopped him harder than a slap. "You listen." The silence sharpened. "You did not betray me tonight by choosing her," Amara said. "That happened long before this airport. Tonight, you simply made sure strangers could witness what kind of man you have always been." Mama Bisi found her voice. "Don't speak to my son like—" Amara turned to her. "For years, you called me the girl your son married," she said. "Tonight, let the whole airport remember the woman your son underestimated." Femi's phone was still in his hand, but now the camera was facing the wrong direction, because the story had turned. The people who came to record her humiliation were now trapped inside their own. A few passengers began whispering. Others openly stared. One woman near the window seats smiled to herself, the small, satisfied smile of someone who has just watched justice arrive without shouting. The executive beside Amara spoke again.
"Ma'am, your private transfer is ready. If you prefer, we can delay departure procedures on your aircraft." Your aircraft. 2 words. That was all it took to collapse the last piece of Kunle's performance. He looked at her as if meeting her for the first time. And maybe he was. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, voice thin now. Amara's expression did not change. "Because you never listened when I spoke." Then she added the line that broke him in front of everyone. "You called me useful. But the life you were showing off tonight was built on access to my name, my family, and my silence." Kunle's face emptied. That was the real punishment. Not losing the seat. Not losing the mistress. Not even losing face in public. It was realizing too late that the woman he tried to reduce had been the platform beneath his entire life. Amara took one step back. Not away in fear, away in completion. "I will have my lawyers contact you," she said. "Do not call me tonight. Do not come to my home. And do not ever again confuse patience with dependence." Then she turned. The executive walked beside her. 2 staff members picked up her bag. And the same terminal where she had been mocked minutes earlier now opened around her with the stunned respect reserved for people who never needed to prove themselves until the exact right moment. No screaming, no fighting, no dramatic collapse. Just the clean, devastating reversal of truth finally introduced in public. By morning, everything changed. Kunle's access cards stopped working. Accounts linked through family structures froze pending review. Vehicles he treated like personal trophies were reclaimed under corporate ownership. The apartment lease he bragged about at parties turned out to be under a company arrangement connected to the Okonkwo estate. Zuri disappeared from his life almost immediately.
Women who chase image do not stay long when the lights go out. Mama Bisi spent the next week calling relatives, trying to rewrite the story. But it was too late. Because the truth about public cruelty is this: once the light turns, everyone suddenly remembers what they saw. And Amara? A week later, she returned to her father's grave. Not with cameras, not with reporters, not with victory speeches, just with quiet. She stood there as the evening wind moved through the cemetery grass and placed her hand on the stone. "I understood, Daddy," she whispered. The tree kept growing. Then she made a decision that had nothing to do with revenge. She launched a foundation in his name for widows and daughters forced out of family property, inheritance, and business by men who assumed silence meant surrender. Because the deepest victory is not merely escaping betrayal. It is building something so meaningful from pain that betrayal becomes a footnote. So if you ever find yourself overlooked, mocked, dismissed, or publicly reduced by people who mistake your calm for weakness, remember Amara. Remember that not every powerful person announces themselves. Not every wealthy woman displays it. Not every wounded heart breaks in public. And not every quiet person is losing. Some are waiting. Some are watching. And some own the very runway arrogant people think they control. If this story moved you, leave a comment with one word: rise. And subscribe for more original stories where the underestimated take back everything without begging.